यच्छन्ति देवाः शृण्वन्तं न स्वप्नाय स्पृहयन्ति.
Our next speaker is Sri Arvind Brahmakal. He's the founder of Ranjani Fine Arts, and his paper is titled Role of Patronage in Carnatic Music, Past, Present and Future.
Respected Chair, Dr. NSK sir, learned scholars in the audience, a lot of connoisseurs of Carnatic music. The presentation here is about the role of patronage. And as I start this, I'd just like to say thank you to the Infinity Foundation for having me over to talk about not the art, because I'm not qualified enough, not about the science in the art, of course I'm not qualified at all, but probably to bring out the commerce behind the art, the patronage that needs to be there to sustain any art form over a long period of time. The way I'd like to address this is, while there is a very rich past that we have, Carnatic music has been around for millennia, okay? And broadly one could look at 4 distinct periods. One is the pre-Mughal period, then the Mughal period, British rule, which was the Christians' rule, and then post-independence. So one could look at it in these 4 distinct areas, and I'd like to leave that aspect to the scholars and the historians to delve deeper into these 4 specific periods. But the good thing is that Carnatic music has remained, survived, and is growing and thriving even to this date. The scene, as far as Carnatic music is concerned, probably has never been as good as what it is today. There's a fantastic platform from which it can really take off. So what I'm going to share is more out of my own personal experiences of having started an organization with 0 bank balance, and how it's, what the kind of learnings, the kind of travails, the kind of ego-crushing experiences that one needs to go through as an organizer. And along the way, with the kind of interaction with very learned musicians, great artists, some of the experiences that I've captured. So it's a first-person account, and a lot of other organizers that I'm associated with, their learnings for a much longer period of time is what I've also tried to capture in this presentation. So evidently, if it survived for this longer period of time, there is something really substantive about the art form itself, okay? Which also gives the confidence that it's a flowing river and it will continue to flow. So we heard about Sahitya and Sangita as the 2 pillars. Now I'd just like to add Adhyatma. Sahitya, Sangita and Adhyatma in combination probably has resulted in the whole thing being what it is today and giving a platform for the next level. So when we talk about culture, right, so it's worth preserving, it's worth growing, and it'll take care of itself because it's taken care of itself over millennia. But there are certain things that can be analyzed at this point in time and space, and then we look at what can be done now by all of us to take it to a progressive level from here. Okay? So when Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast, I think it's very, very apt in this context. See, in the last 70 years, we all know what kind of importance was given to our culture. While we got the independence from the British rule, but in terms of our own appreciation, our deep sense of gratitude for our culture kept waning over the last many decades. But now, of course, it all comes a full cycle, as they say. Now you see people, who are totally opposed to this and just working on strategy, now going on temple runs with tilaks and, dhotis, unable to wear the dhotis properly, but they're just going around, and coming back to our native culture, which is good. They're all welcome back into the zone. So, in terms of the importance for culture, any nation, the building block is certainly the culture, and which then means that it has to be supported. It has to be supported very well. It has to be supported by one and all. Okay? Now this support for all these years has been largely through philanthropy. Now philanthropy, why can't it be made for-profit kind of an enterprise? Well, there are opportunities to do so. Some of them are doing so. And it will continue to happen. Those experiments will keep happening in terms of commercializing the art form. Okay? Good, bad, ugly, that's a different conversation. However, largely, the kind of patronage that has come is through philanthropy. Philanthropy of kings in the past, of the governments of today, of Rasikas, or the Rasikas like you and I, who would want to open our purse strings to organizations or artists. Okay? So, in terms of philanthropy, this is a McKinsey study. This study was a comparative between what happens in philanthropy in America versus what happens in India. You would obviously guess, and you're guessing it right, that the size of the pie itself is way, way larger in terms of philanthropy in America. And it is much smaller, very, very small in India. Okay? The share that arts and culture gets from the philanthropy pie in America is almost 10%. 10% is a large amount of money for arts and culture. Right? And for a civilization that has been about 500, 600 years old. And in our case, it doesn't even count to a second decimal point. This is about the overall arts and culture. And we talk about Carnatic music, it doesn't figure at all anywhere. So that is the kind of pittance that comes into arts and culture. And there are several reasons for this, and we will see why it is so. But before that, let's see what are the ramifications. If there's paucity of patronage, what are the downsides that we see? See, any young student or any young college student, right, who's pursuing a education would obviously want to have a good, prosperous, thriving career ahead of the person. So there are so many opportunities in terms of whether it is an engineering field or medicine or chartered accountancy or MBA, or there are hundreds of professions that give a good opportunity for the youngster to make a livelihood. Okay? Compare that to a choice that this youngster has to make. Should I take Carnatic music as my profession, as my full-time profession? Okay. To what extent am I going to get the kind of money for my livelihood? Okay. To what extent can I take my, the artha and kama needs in a dharmic way? It's a big question, and I think a question for all of us to ponder upon. And the choice becomes very clear. Okay, let me go on 2 boats. Let me do this part-time. Let me pursue my profession. And this is a hobby. If I really kind of make it big, if money comes, then I'm going to make the switch. That restrains or constrains the person to actually go deeper into the art form itself. Right? Anything that's done part-time, anyone who pursues excellence has to really be there 365 days, 24/7. That's when excellence comes about. And if it's a part-time thing, then I think the person has a constraint to take it forward in terms of his or her own art form. Now, how do you make good of that? Now, there are people, the poachers, as I call them. There are allurements in various forms and shape. The allurements, and lately I think this has come into public debate quite a bit, right? And we all, I'm sure, have our own point of view. And my specific point of view here is artha and kama has to be pursued in life. This is for every normal human being, right? If somebody gets to a sannyasa, that's a different aspect. But this is a live performing art. There is commerce behind it. Okay? And there is fame and name that comes along with it. But if adharmic means are adopted, okay, by faiths that believe that that's the only way to move forward, then I think we have a challenge to address. And that becomes one of the key challenges for us to really sit together and address the patronage conundrum. As far as the organizers are concerned, right? So typically, what kind of people do you get to see in a Carnatic music live performance? No offense to anyone sitting here, but it's largely the people who are in their post-retirement phase. Now they have enough time to come and sit for a 3-hour concert, and they can appreciate every nuance of the Carnatic music, right? Which is good. I think there is a constituency out there, but we also need to see a constituency we have left totally untapped. From the children to the youth to middle-aged, that's where the money comes from, right? So if in that sense, since the kind of audience that you have is what it is, the organizers are also to take this up as a part of their post-retiral meaningful engagement proposition. Okay? So whether it is the corporates or the government, they look for the return on investment. Okay? And how do we address that thing here? And of course, the not-for-profit, which is philanthropy, opposed to the commercial enterprise. The reasons for patronage apathy, I think we've covered this a bit. Rasikas are conditioned to saying that, hey, I need to get this concert free of charge, and I'm entitled to have this. To open willingly and pay 100 rupees for a program, very few people would willingly do that. Okay, which is a clear challenge out here. Now, for the government, it's not a big enough vote bank, so it's a very, very small section of the population. So government is while there are some grants, etc., but it's so small and so time-consuming to obtain. Right? It becomes a challenge to go after that. And of course, the lack of awareness, we've all interacted with the ministries, culture ministries. The less said about their awareness about Carnatic music, the better it is. Right? And when we talk about the corporates very clear. What is my return? If I have to give 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees for a program, to sponsor a program, how many people are you going to get? What are my footfalls? What are the eyeballs you can get me? Now, should they look at it in that manner or not? That's a different question, but that's the reality today. And the last one is about the concept that this is an interesting concept. In fact, it struck me pretty hard in a recent program we conducted. A multinational company, good, credible brand, they said, yes, we will sponsor the program. It was a thrilling experience, a multinational company saying, we're going to sponsor your program. Wonderful. But closer to the date, we went back to them and asked them, hey, give us your logo so that we can put it up on the backdrop. He says, no, we can't give our logo. But why? Well, this is not a secular art form. They're okay to sponsor the program, but they don't want their name to come there. This is a unique thing that I noticed. So what is secular, what is not secular? Well, you're in this country, you're doing business, you're earning your profits in this country, might as well support the culture of this country. Right? If you're not supporting the culture of this country, then what are you supporting? Whether that culture is, forget about the definitions of secularism, whether that culture is related to Hinduism, related to Christianity, related to Islam, whatever it is culture of this country, you better support that. Right? So, this concept of secularism, we have to really give this, bid this a farewell as far as art and culture is concerned, and focus on developing each art form the way it is. We don't have to merge, mix and mash and do everything just to prove that, okay, this is for everyone. The way it is for everyone. This is my last slide, and here I'd like to just focus on specific actions to take by each of the constituents, right? And if we are able to do this, there's a good chance that we can grow the overall pie in the patronage for Carnatic music. We need to get a clear enabling environment in the first place. By an enabling environment, I would say, today, as opposed to even 10 years back, the social media platforms are surfeit. So many of them. Okay? And that's a big vehicle to influence, bring people who are not used to Carnatic music into the fold of Carnatic music. Okay? And for that, today I hear a lot of artists come forward and say, please don't record my concert. But why? This is an opportunity to take our music, make it popular to everyone. Right? So, permission to record and put it up on the social media. Now, if there are some commercials involved, discuss the commercials, but allow that to go on the air. Get more and more people attracted. Show that this is a good piece of jaggery out there. Let the ants come closer. When there is a medium, why do we want to miss that medium? The other concept is about art music. I think Radha just referred to art music. While art music has a constituency, let that constituency continue. But there is a need, a dire need at this stage for popular Carnatic music. How do we want to define popular Carnatic music? We can take it up separately. But something that is customer-centric Carnatic music, where people can come forward and enjoy. They are spending 3 hours of their precious time when they have many avenues to spend the same time. How can you get the person going out of the hall feel, this is what I wanted to listen? Once this enabling environment is set, from the Rasika's perspective, from you and I, right? So we have a few options. Generally, in terms of charity, the recommended percentage of one's income is around 2%. 2% of annual earnings, if it's given out to charity, it's a fantastic thing. You'll earn a lot of good karma from there, right? If that 2%, every one of us takes that, vow that we will pledge that we will give out 2% and identify a credible organization, a sabha close to you, where you frequent, or identify an artist who you really like and pay them 2% of your income. And if this becomes, widespread, then I guess there is a lot more money coming in. Celebrate occasions at home. Now today, we have only a few sabhas in every city that organize programs, formally organized programs. While there are temples, while there are other options, but here is one call for action. We have so many occasions to celebrate at our homes, whether it is a birthday, whether it is a marriage ceremony or whatever else, right? Can each one of us say, once a year, we'll have one concert at our home? So the number of opportunities that open up for youngsters especially will be phenomenal, and it goes only to develop the art form even that much more. You'll be directly instrumental in bringing more money into Carnatic music. And young Rasikas being part of the management committees of various organizations, they bring in a different energy that is required. Okay? From a government perspective, I think one scheme that I was particularly impressed about is the Mudra scheme, where all the people who do not have money to or collaterals to provide, they were given loans by the banks. Okay? Now, this is a request to the government today, if we can have some kind of a scheme to promote, to put money into the hands of all the small organizations, more money into small organizations. That will really change the landscape of Carnatic music. CSR is an important one. Today you have a CSR, mandated CSR, that's corporate social responsibility for corporate, that the corporates have to incur about 2% of their profits. Within that, can we make a request to the government to create a 10% as a threshold for that a company should necessarily spend for arts and culture? So this brings in significant money into Carnatic music. Finally, corporates. One big service corporates can do is to build infrastructure. There is a lack of quality auditoria in every city. Okay? For live performances, you need quality auditoria at reasonable cost. So even if 10 corporates in every city take this up and set up one auditoria in their name, it will go a long way in promoting the art and culture. And finally, give artists the security, livelihood security. Like a lot of cricketers, there is a sports quota in employment, right? Can we encourage the corporates, including the banks, to have an artist quota for employment, right? So that secures the livelihood. The artists can focus on the art form and grow the art form from there. So as we conclude here, all that I would like to say is I'm very optimistic, and I'm an optimist by nature. I see the way yoga and Ayurveda has taken off in the last 5 years. Our next big contribution to the globe, to the world, is going to be classical music and classical dance, or Indian art forms. So it's going to go global. So for all the youngsters, this is certainly going to be a high potential investment in terms of time and effort. Thank you very much.